So I want you to imagine um, sitting in this completely sterile, unfamiliar room.
Right.
You are totally powerless. Your heart is just hammering in your chest, and you are terrified out of your mind.
A nightmare scenario, really.
Exactly. And now imagine someone sitting across from you, very calmly, uh, reading a highly detailed technical manual at you in order to, like, quote, unquote, save you.
Which is just, I mean, wildly unhelpful in that moment.
Right. So today, we are fundamentally inverting how we look at systems of protection and safeguarding. We're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating framework called What a DSL Can Learn from a Hostage Survivor.
And just real quick, for those outside the education sector, a DSL is a designated safeguarding leave. So that's the person whose entire job is to protect vulnerable students from harm.
Yeah, exactly. And usually we look at safeguarding from the outside in, right? Like the legal thresholds, the decision-making matrices, all that administrative
Some
machinery.
paperwork, yeah.
Right. But what if we analyze it from the inside out, from the perspective of total powerlessness? Okay, let's unpack this. Because, I mean, what professionals do to safeguard someone obviously matters,
Yeah.
but what it actually feels like to the person in danger, that alters the entire trajectory of their survival.
It really does. I mean, historically, the standard goalpost for any institutional protection system has been, well, it's been focused on compliance.
Checking the boxes.
Exactly. Like, did we follow the rules? Did we secure the physical perimeter? But this framework, it shifts that metric entirely. It asks, did the person actually experience safety in their nervous system?
Well, yeah.
It forces us to realize that protection is, it's a physiological state. It's not just an administrative checklist.
When I was reading through the source material, I couldn't shake this one visual.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
Handing a standard safeguarding procedure to a traumatized student
Mhm.
is literally like trying to read an instruction manual to someone while they are falling out of an airplane.
That is, wow, that's a really intense image.
Right. Because, like, the information in that manual might be legally and technically correct, but the delivery method completely ignores the sheer blinding terror of their immediate reality.
Right, and it sounds like a dramatic visual, but neurologically speaking, that is exactly what is happening in their brain.
Really. Like, literally.
Literally, when a human being is experiencing extreme control or abuse or coercion, their cognitive processing just fundamentally shifts.
Oh, so.
Well, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for logical reasoning, sequential thinking, processing complex instruction manuals, it essentially goes offline.
Oh, wow. So they literally can't process it.
Exactly. The amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, it just takes over. They are completely flooded with cortisol and adrenaline.
So when the framework introduces this concept of the survivor principle, it's not just like a poetic metaphor. It's a biological reality.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the source explains that in a hostage situation, your choices are artificially stripped away. Using your voice feels like a fatal risk,
Yeah.
You are entirely dependent on someone else's whims.
And that biological state, I mean, it translates perfectly to a student experiencing grooming or an employee trapped in a highly coercive domestic abuse situation.
Right, right.
They are living in that exact same psychological baseline. They don't know who is safe to trust, and they're entirely dependent on how the adults or the authorities around them react.
Because they're in survival mode.
Exactly. Because their logical brain is offline, they aren't processing the exact legally approved vocabulary a professional is using.
They are scanning for primal threat cues instead.
Exactly that. They remember tone. They remember microexpressions.
They're watching everything.
Yeah. They remember the posture and the emotional regulation of the person sitting across from them far more than any perfectly scripted protocol. I mean, they are desperate to predict if the adult in front of them is going to help them or hurt them.
I see a major point of friction here, though. Like, let's look at a reality that well-meaning professionals face every single day.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a student is sitting in an office, totally silent, just frozen, like a deer in headlights. I mean, I see this happen all the time in corporate HR investigations or, school discipline settings.
Oh, sure. All the time.
A leader misinterprets that biological freeze response as the person being difficult or defiant or just uncooperative.
Which is such a dangerous mistake.
Right. And then the adult escalates their own tone to regain control of the meeting, which just terrifies the person even more. We focus so hard on saying the legally perfect words from the manual that we completely ignore our own hostile body language.
What's fascinating here is how the source material reframes that exact silence.
How so?
Well, silence is a highly evolved survival strategy. If a professional misreads that freeze response and becomes agitated, they instantly become another threat in the room.
Wow. They become the threat.
Yes. So the strategic pivot the document offers is really profound. Safeguarding isn't about managing risk on a spreadsheet. It is about actively regulating the nervous system of the person in front of you and restoring a micro sense of control.
Because, I mean, if you don't actively restore that agency, the person stays in survival mode and nothing else happens. You get zero disclosure.
You get zero engagement, none. And this requires an immense amount of self-awareness from the professional.
Like what kind of awareness?
Keeping your vocal pitch low, avoiding sharp intakes of breath or expressions of shock when a really difficult disclosure happens.
Oh, that makes sense, so you don't freak them out.
Right. Letting the student dictate the physical space and the pacing of the conversation. I mean, your biological response, before you even ask your very first intake question, is communicating either safety or danger to their amygdala.
It sets the entire baseline.
Yeah.
And if that baseline is hypervigilance, it explains what the document calls the magnifying glass of high stress.
Yes, the magnifying glass.
Like every tiny, seemingly routine action you take is massively amplified.
Think about the cognitive load on a DSL or an HR manager or a social worker, right?
It's massive.
You might have 50 active cases, endless legal thresholds to meet, an overflowing inbox, and a meeting in 10 minutes.
Just a normal Tuesday.
Exactly. So glancing at your watch, interrupting a sentence to clarify a date, or maybe slightly rushing the end of a conversation, these are routine byproducts of a busy Tuesday to you. It's just efficiency.
But to the person whose brain is trapped in threat detection mode, that rushed energy signals, I am a burden, or you don't believe me, you just want to get this over with.
It instantly shatters trust.
It really does. You know, it makes me think of going to a hospital for a terrifying, highly invasive procedure.
Ah, that's a good comparison.
Right. Like the surgery itself might be a complete technical success on paper. The incisions were perfect, the charts were coded correctly for billing, the liability was totally managed.
The system worked.
But if the doctor refused to make eye contact, barked orders at the nurses, and didn't bother to explain what was happening to your body, you still leave that hospital fundamentally traumatized.
Because the system failed the human being.
Exactly. The system worked perfectly procedurally, but it completely failed the person.
And that is the systemic flaw hiding in plain sight across almost all institutional protection frameworks.
It's everywhere.
It is. A safeguarding system can check every single legal box, meet every threshold, and still feel completely cold, confusing, and fundamentally unsafe from the inside.
Yeah.
We have basically conflated a system that functions with a system that cares.
But let me push back on this a bit, because I'm putting myself in the shoes of a listener who manages these teams, or maybe, runs an entire department.
Fair enough?
Is it genuinely feasible to expect a professional to flawlessly manage these hypersensitive neurological micro-interactions when they are simultaneously holding the weight of heavy legal liabilities, complex reporting procedures, and the literal safety of a child?
It's a lot to ask.
It's a massive amount. We are asking an educator or a manager to be a precise, ruthless compliance lawyer and a master-level trauma therapist at the exact same moment.
Well, the expectation isn't flawless therapeutic execution. It's a fundamental shift in posture.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The compliance and the procedure don't evaporate, right? But they cannot be used as an excuse to bypass human connection.
Right.
Acknowledging the stress in the room, narrating what you are doing, saying something like, I'm going to take a note now so I make sure I get this important detail exactly right. That doesn't actually take more time.
Oh, that's interesting, just narrating it.
Yeah. It simply alters the experience of the procedure. It removes the mystery and therefore removes the threat. It's about balancing process with presence.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that tension between administrative duty and emotional sensitivity reaches an absolute boiling point during the very first point of contact.
It does.
The source is so adamant about the distinction between protection and connection.
Yes. Core Insights 5 and 6 dig incredibly deep into this. Being heard is neurologically just as important as being physically protected.
Just as important.
The hostage survivor perspective shows us that survivors prioritize feeling understood and believed almost equally with physical rescue.
Wow.
If safeguarding is something done to a student, it inadvertently mimics the power dynamics of their abuse. It absolutely must be something done with them.
Done with them. That is a massive distinction. I want to break down what done to versus done with actually looks like in
Sure,
practice.
let's play it out.
Let's say a professional gets a severe disclosure, they panic, or they just default to their training and they immediately rush to the solution phase.
They go into fixer mode.
Exactly. They grab the clipboard, they lock the door, they start dialing child services, firing off emails. They're securing the physical perimeter flawlessly.
Doing their job on paper.
But they do all of this without stopping to offer basic validation to the student sitting right in front of them, without asking how they feel or explaining who is on the phone.
Well, by doing that, the professional has effectively taken the student hostage again, just in a different room.
Taking them hostage again, that's heavy.
It is, but it's true. They have secured the perimeter, but totally abandoned the person inside it. If the student feels they are suddenly a liability being processed rather than a human being heard, their nervous system will just shut down.
It just frees up again.
Right. They might be physically safe from the abuser for that specific night, but the trust required for long-term recovery, the trust needed for them to testify or continue disclosing, that is completely severed. The initial response dictates the entire trajectory of their recovery.
It's a really chilling realization that the exact procedures designed to save someone can accidentally replicate the control of their abuser if delivered without empathy.
It's a huge blind spot.
But let's pump the brakes for a second, because as powerful as this framework is, treating a school or a corporate HR department purely like a hostage negotiation has absolute limits.
This raises an important question, and it transitions us nicely to what the text explicitly labels the honest bit.
Yes, the honest bit.
Where does this analogy shatter? Because as a leader, you cannot run a complex organization solely on the subjective emotional experience of the people in it.
Right. You still have rules.
Exactly. Not every situation is an extreme life or death crisis. And professionals have a system-level responsibility. They have to make balanced, evidence-informed decisions.
Sure.
And the source establishes a non-negotiable golden rule. Emotional understanding must never delay actual protection.
Wait, I have to challenge this paradox because this feels like a massive, unworkable contradiction.
How so?
We literally just spent the last 10 minutes unpacking why empathy, pacing, letting the student lead, and mitigating our rushed energy are the most paramount things.
True.
We established that rushing destroys trust. But now the source strictly warns not to let emotional understanding delay protection.
I know, it sounds contradictory.
How does a leader actually operationalize those two opposing forces in real time? Like, go at their pace, but don't delay the protection. It sounds good on a slide deck, but how does that actually work in a chaotic Tuesday morning crisis?
It is the ultimate leadership tightrope. But the fallacy is believing that empathy and decisive action are mutually exclusive.
They aren't.
They aren't. You can act swiftly to neutralize a threat while simultaneously communicating with profound care. Let's bring back your hospital analogy to look at the mechanism here.
Okay, let's do it.
If a patient comes into the emergency room with a life-threatening arterial bleed, the trauma team doesn't pull up a chair and say, hey, let's spend an hour discussing your feelings and pacing this out before we stop the bleeding.
Right, that would be horrific malpractice.
Exactly. They act immediately. But how they act makes the difference.
What do you mean?
A high-functioning trauma team moves at lightning speed, shouting clinical orders to each other, but there is always one person assigned to stand by the patient's head, look them in the eye, and ground them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They say, you are safe. We are moving fast to help you. You're going to feel a pinch now, but we are right here. The action is incredibly swift, but the communication is grounded and empathetic.
So you don't delay the action?
You elevate the interaction.
You elevate the interaction. That is brilliant. The protection happens instantly, but the connection is maintained throughout the chaos. That makes total sense.
It's a game changer when applied correctly.
But relying on individual heroes to just know how to do this in a panic isn't really a sustainable strategy, is it?
No, not at all. Which is why the source points us to the leadership layer. Resolving this paradox at scale is what defines true human-centered leadership.
So it has to be baked into the culture.
Exactly. A strong culture doesn't just train individuals on empathy, it designs the actual systems with the vulnerable person's emotional experience in mind from the very blueprint stage.
The blueprint stage.
Yes, and it introduces a brilliant concept called well-being literacy.
Let's expand on well-being literacy, because the document highlights this as a dual pathway. And I honestly think this is the secret sauce for any functional organization.
I completely agree. So the dual pathway means that on one side, the individuals, The students, the employees, the patients, they actually understand the process is happening to them.
The system is radically transparent.
Exactly. A low well-being literacy environment operates like a black box, right? You report a problem, it disappears into an HR or safeguarding void, and you are left in the dark wondering if anyone even believed you.
That is the worst feeling.
It is. But a high well-being literacy environment constantly explains the why and the what next to the person involved.
And the second pathway of well-being literacy.
It's the staff recognizing the emotional impact of those processes.
Right.
It's leadership training their teams, not just on how to fill out the mandatory intake form, but on the psychological toll the intake form takes on the person filling it out.
So having empathy for the paperwork itself.
Exactly. It's understanding that an investigation isn't just an administrative chore. It is an active trauma trigger.
I want to direct this right to you, the listener. Why should you care about well-being literacy if you don't work in a school and have literally never heard of a DSL before today?
Good question.
Because any system you interact with, or any system you are currently building in your own career, whether it is customer support, workplace conflict resolution, healthcare intake, or even how you structure boundaries in your own family, it is ultimately judged by how it is felt by the most vulnerable person in the room.
Spot on.
It is not judged by how legally bulletproof it looks in a PDF. If you build a flawless system from the outside in, optimizing only for your own liability or efficiency, you will inevitably alienate the exact people that system was built to serve.
It's a universal vulnerability in system design. Process without emotional awareness creates compliance, sure, but it never creates actual safety.
So what does this all mean? We've traced the biological anatomy of powerlessness, the magnifying glass of high stress, and this incredibly delicate systemic balance between swift protection and deep connection.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. If we synthesize all these sources, what is the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive?
The core realization to pull from this is that safeguarding, or any form of protection, is not merely a verb or a procedure. It is a physiological state.
It's a feeling.
It is a feeling. The true effectiveness of your protection is measured strictly by how safe it actually feels to the nervous system of the person experiencing it.
Not just checking the boxes.
Right. You can flawlessly execute the protocol, you can tick every box, but if the person feels like a hostage to your process, you haven't truly protected them.
The source ends with a really brilliant reflection, a carrying question for anyone who builds or executes these systems to ask themselves in the mirror.
I love this part.
If I experienced my own safeguarding practice from the student's perspective, would it feel like protection or something harder to trust?
It's a mirror we all need to look into. And I'd leave you with this to mull over as you go about your day.
What's that?
If a profound feeling of powerlessness fundamentally alters how a human brain interprets help, if it forces a traumatized nervous system to view rules and well-meaning professionals as potential threats, what does that say about how we design our broader societal safety nets?
Oh, that's a big question.
Think about the labyrinth of bureaucratic hoops we force people to jump through for housing assistance, financial aid, or workplace disability.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Are we constantly engineering highly logical systems of support that, from the inside out, actually feel like elaborate traps to the very people falling into them?
That is the exact tension we have to sit with. So next time you hand someone a manual while they're falling out of an airplane, ask yourself if what they really need is a parachute packed with empathy. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.